Chapter 1. Jessica crept down a dirt road, blackened by a starless night. 30 miles south of the Texas border, houses made of plywood and corrugated metal lay strewn about the desert like tumbleweeds, and she wandered the tire-rutted path between them. The crack of a gunshot blasted through the night. She leaped from the road and slid against the nearest house for cover. Doors and windows closed with a thud or a creak. Lights winked out in the nearby homes. Then silence surrounded her. Residual heat from the day's sun still warmed the wall she pressed into, hoping to become invisible. The night had grown cool, and she wished she could stay in the relative comfort of its heat and protection. But she'd come here to make a delivery for an important client, which might mean figuring out the origin of the gunshot, or where the bullet had gone. Hopefully, the shots came from some idiot celebrating his kid's birthday or his own manhood. Worst case, one end of the gun belonged to someone in the drug trade, a fairly common occupation on the U.S.-Mexico border. A hit of danger washed through her, clenching her gut with dread but prickling the skin on her arms with excitement. She shouldn't be here. Needed to figure out how her job had gone from fancy industrial real estate deals in executive offices to dropping off paperwork after hours in a part of town so isolated GPS didn't know it existed. She glanced at the manila envelope clenched in her hand. What kind of crap job had Tomas gotten her into? The envelope must have crumpled when she heard the gunshot. She smoothed it against her thigh as best she could. She had a job to do. And her line of work, not delivering, killed careers. She stepped back into the street. Light shone through a window a couple of blocks away. That had to be her destination. Tomas's guys wouldn't have been frightened by the gunshot. Hell, it had probably been their gun. She crept forward, taking her time and aiming for quiet. She reached the edge of the property and tucked herself behind the corner of the house to listen, scraping against the rough stucco. It was a solid house for this neighborhood. Voices drifted toward her, and she froze. She'll be here. Jessica recognized Tomas, sounding lazy in the amped-up night. Earlier in the day, he'd told her he wouldn't be at the drop site. Clearly, he'd lied. She fingered the packet again. She'd watched him sign the piece of paper and slip it into this very envelope before sealing it and handing it to her. Nothing but paper and ink. She'd never transport drugs or anything else that would get her in real trouble. So, why was he here? Creo que no. Low and raspy, Jessica didn't recognize the second man's voice, but he'd probably spent a lifetime sucking on Marlboros. Whoever he was, he didn't believe she'd show up. He clearly didn't know her. She always finished her jobs. It was the only way to get to the next one. She stepped away from the house, ready to approach the door. After a single step, the sound of a chair scraping across the floor floated through the open window. She paused, breathless, willing herself not to make a sound. I'm telling you, she'll be here, and I can trust her not to open the envelope. Unlike you guys. Text me when it's over. Quick footsteps. Then a door opened and shut. There must be a back entrance. She heard the roar of an engine, then tires crunching on gravel. Probably Tomas's enormous black Escalade. What kind of trap had Tomas set for her, and why? She had carefully developed her reputation as a cross-border real estate broker and jack of all trades. She had earned the trust of people in high places on both sides of the border. When they needed a document delivered, or money, she preferred not to know, as long as it wasn't drugs. Jessica got the call. It could be a real ego stroke, and it could land you in a Mexican shantytown in the middle of the night. She straightened her shoulders and breathed deeply, if quietly, before stepping forward. She paused just before the window and glanced inside. A man stared back at her. The surprise shocked her to her core, but she slipped on her poker face as quickly as possible, squinting her eyes to look tough and hoping he hadn't noticed her moment of fear.